Hello everyone and welcome back to Full House Sports. Here with myself Charlie. And before the video starts, please give us a like and please subscribe to the channel if you like the content. Anything you guys do is greatly appreciated. Also the link to the Instagram will be in the description of this video, so give us a follow if you can. Thank you. Right, I've always said when I started doing this on YouTube, I say that like I've done it for ages. When I recently started doing YouTube, I've always said I wanted to cover not just the mainstream stories because there's a million and one things on that and we all know that. That's why, for example, yesterday I did the video on Gout because although he's not a secret, there's been, well, certainly the UK, not a lot of build up to who he is, unless of course people will say there has been, but I personally don't think there's been enough for the potential of what we could be seeing. And that goes the same for the World Cup qualifiers. Now, anyone who watched my England review the other day after the Andorra game, I've wrong and I've ended up with egg on my face, so ignore the bit where I said that Serbia could be a banana skin that I feared for England. That wasn't me talking. That was just the pain of watching us at Villa Park the day before, the bitterness really, to be honest with you. But yeah, glad to be proven wrong as a patriotic Englishman, but I still think there's work to do, but that's not what this video is about. This video is about three nations really that have really caught the eye and could be on for a fairy tale in terms of qualifying for the first World Cup. Obviously the World Cup next year in the USA is expanded. It's 48 teams. I'm not afraid to admit, anyone who knows me will say that I think it's not great. It could potentially dilute the quality, but the one thing it has done is it's enabled smaller nations to get a better chance at qualifying, and none more so than Cape Verde, who I nicknamed the Blue Sharks, which I love. There's not a better nickname, I don't think. Three Lions versus the Blue Sharks. That's got a great ring to it next year in New York. But they are potentially on course to qualify for their first World Cup. They defeated Cameroon last night. Onana made a howler, so Man United fans watching, you'll be not pleased to know that, but you'll feel vindicated for your spiel about him for these last few months. And they defeated Cameroon 1-0, I think, with a big fish in their group, excuse the shark-related pun. And it looks like they're on course to qualify. Obviously, in Britain, they're mainly known as being, Cape Verde that is mainly known as a lovely beach-filled archipelago off the coast of Africa. But it looks like, I say, they could be making the trip to USA. In terms of players, and I think this video, certainly the first two nations I'm going to talk about, are both beneficiaries of this in terms of they've looked at their heritage, they've looked at the FIFA's rules around lineage, and they've looked at players that are potentially playing in the Netherlands or in Portugal or Spain or in different countries in big footballing nations and gone, you are eligible to represent us, would you like to? You're probably not going to play for that nation, so come represent us. I mean, you look at their squad, as a Forest fan, there's two names that instantly stick out to me. Ryan Mendes, who we had for a brief period, who I thought, to be fair, always looked bright on the wing. He was not necessarily had a lot of end product, but he looked bright. He's their captain. And also Nuno da Costa, who, yeah, is easier to forget, to be honest. I think he came in under, must have been under Sabri Lamouchi he came in. Yeah, it was. And I think his main contribution was the day we bottled the playoffs under Sabri. I'm pretty sure he scored an own goal. So, yeah, he's one who I think it's easier to forget. But listen, as much as I can slag him off, it would be great for him and his nation to qualify for the World Cup. I'm pretty sure that they would be they would definitely be one of the smallest nations to qualify for the World Cup. I'd probably have to check the smallest. I know Trinidad were, and Iceland as well, were both quite small in population. They'd be in that sort of range. But it's an incredible story, and obviously Africa, they're part of CAF, Confederation of African Football, and they've got more places, and that's fantastic to see. I'm talking about lineage and talking about FIFA's rules around that. Another nation it looks like could be on course to qualify is Suriname, which, when you look at their squad, it's littered with sort of Dutch players who are representing the country of their ancestry. Listen, that's the way the world works. We've seen it ourselves in this country in recent years with some players turning to their parents or their grandparents' nations of countries that we've formerly colonised, whether that be Caribbean nations. We saw quite the influx of English players going to play for Jamaica. recently. I should really call them Jamaican players. That's what they've chosen to represent. That's how they feel. Like Mikel Antonio being one of the most prominent ones. I think Omari Hutchinson as well was played for Jamaica twice in friendlies, but doesn't count. And it's the same with Suriname, that they've picked up players who are Dutch but are of Suriname heritage. Players like Geraldo Becker, who has played for Real Sociedad, is now at Osasuna in La Liga, and Fernie Dijksteel, who is well known to Football League fans. Kenneth Paal of QPR as well is in the squad. They've got a lot of players, like I say, who've gone that way, and it looks like they've built a real sort of solid group now, a solid core. We've seen it in quite a few recent times. There's Curaçao as well who did it. So they had Gus Hiddink in charge, and I think Bacuna went and played for them. So these nations, I don't blame them for doing it. And it's great to see, you know, if Suriname, they qualified through the CONCACAF, they beat El Salvador the other day. They won when they were at the Gold Cup, I thought might impress, but they weren't quite maybe tournament ready, but it looks like they've got their heads down on this qualification campaign and could get in. And the last one I want to talk about is Bolivia, who for so long have been the whipping boys of the CONMEBOL playoff group. Obviously, the CONMEBOL qualifying, the South American qualifying, is no doubt the hardest in the world. And Bolivia are one of the real reasons for that. For those who don't know, Bolivia's stadium is over 4,000 metres above sea level. So the altitude is incredible. I remember Messi a few years ago was sick on a Bolivian pitch. Maradona complained about it, said it wasn't right. There was talk that players would go in there and having to have oxygen at half time. It was that high above sea level. And they've always used that to their advantage. And who can blame them? Some have said, oh, it's not fair, but Bolivia can't blame where it is. They can't blame, oh, well, we'll just go and play at a neutral venue and give away all our advantages. No, because they've not got as much talent as maybe their neighbours. And they beat Brazil 1-0 on Tuesday night. Yeah, Tuesday night they beat them. I was trying to remember the date there, which secures them a playoff to try and qualify. It also cost Venezuela, which is a shame for them because it would have been Venezuela's first World Cup. One big casualty of that group. Of course, those who don't know, it's in one big group. All 10 nations go into a big qualifying group. That's why it's so tough. But Venezuela have failed to qualify. But another one who did is Chile. Of course, I remember when Chile, around about 2014, went to World Cup. They played Brazil. They were unlucky in the round of 16. They had Alexis Sanchez, Arturo Vidal. They won the Copa America as well. Claudio Bravo as well, another one well known to English fans. Yeah, things aren't going to plan there. I saw Lawrence Vigouroux of Swansea, made his debut for them at the Maracanã the other night against Brazil. But yeah, three nations, Suriname, Cape Verde and Bolivia, that are all in with a great chance of getting to their first World Cup. And for me, although the expansion, I think, is another way of FIFA just trying to make more money, it's fantastic to see these smaller nations go toe-to-toe potentially next summer with the big ones. Imagine for Cape Verde, they wouldn't have been their wildest dreams 10 years ago, thought that they could be playing in Argentina or a Spain or a Germany or a France or even Thomas Tuchel's England. But for them, it's massive, and that's fantastic. And that's really what football and sport's about, isn't it? None of the corporate stuff. No problem for them, of course, is going to be if their fans can get in, thanks to a certain man in the White House. But anyways, give the video a like, please, if you like the content. Have a great day, guys. Thank you very much.